Entering the German HR tech market is not for the faint-hearted. With strong local champions like Personio and aggressive international, especially American competitors, it's one of Europe's toughest playing fields. In this episode of Go to Germany Stories, I talk with Marek Kraus, country manager at Lucca, about how the French HR software company found its place and built a strong presence in this crowded space. We explore how Lucca defined its positioning and messaging, identified the right ICP, managed to grow from a niche player to a real competitor in the market. Marek also shares how they built a resilient team, invested heavily in sales enablement, and learned to stand out through personal connection and attention to detail, from lead generation to customer success. So whether you're expanding into Germany or facing tough competition in your own market, this episode offers practical insights on focus, differentiation, and resilience. So let's jump right in. So, hello, Marek, and welcome to the Go to Germany podcast.
Hi, Andrea. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we find the time today to talk about Lucca and the go-to-markets and the go-to-Germany of Lucca. Before we start into our questions and the topics that we have decided to discuss today, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Lucca for those who might not know Lucca yet?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I start with Lucca. Lucca is a French company. We are developing HR solutions primarily for SMBs. And we are on the market since 20 years. We are a core French company. And in the last couple of years, we've been growing a lot. Pound growth rates around 40%. So we grew also into Germany. And last year we made the decision, or Lucca made the decision, to support German customers also from the German ground. And that's how I came to Lucca. I am Marek. I'm 48 years old already. 3 daughters. Since 20 years, I'm already engaged with the IT industry since 2013 in the specific HR tech industry. So I've been doing a lot of around payroll tech, around recruiting tech, and HR tech in general. So I came to Lucca last year. And what we've been doing is building a team on the ground, doing the first steps with pure German customers. And yeah, now we're starting to scale the business. And that's kind of my mission together with my team here in Munich, in the beautiful Bavarian city.
Yes. And so HR tech is, of course, already a very established market. A lot of players already in Germany. So quite competitive situation for Lucca when you entered the German market. Can you tell us a little bit about how the competitive landscape looked like for you when you arrived? And how do you, let's say, position yourself compared to the competition that is already in the market?
Yeah. HR tech in general, just to give a little bit of a broader perspective, HR tech itself it has huge opportunity in entire Europe, especially in Germany. Everyone wants to go to the German market. I mean, even only in our ICP, we have around 100,000 companies which we can serve. And the situation in Germany is still, even though it's a mature market, it's still digitalization is still on a very low level. So you have still people having personal files in their physical files. You say Leitsordner in German, and they have paper and they're using paper in order to do payroll, etc. There's a lot of room for HR tech in the German market. And that's why there's also a lot of companies who are trying to engage with that market, of course. So you have a lot of local players into certain niches. You have the big local player, which is Personio. Everyone knows Personio is a unicorn. It is very well known in Germany, but also worldwide because it's kind of a superstar. And you have a lot of European players like Factorial, or you have Hybob, which is not a European player. They're from Israel, but they are also investing a lot and they have a lot of investors. And then you have all the American companies like Deal and Rippling trying to get into the market. So you have from all the sides, from the local, you have a lot of companies. And when you go to those events, to the HR tech events, it's amazing. You see sometimes 50 to 30 booth where everyone does basically the same thing. So everyone is trying to tackle the market. So the competition, the opportunity is high. There's a lot of room and you have a lot of companies you can serve, but at the same time, also the competition is pretty high in the German market.
So when you then do the go-to-market and you say, okay, let's go to Germany, and you have this competitive landscape that is really vast with many companies, many potential clients. Of course, you cannot do everything from the very start. So you have to focus on something. So how did you decide at Lucca also, let's say, to come from your ICP on what to concentrate? Because you have always, the gap between the quick wins to show it's working and that there's traction, and then this huge market. So how did you, for Lucca, really decide, okay, what do we focus on in the beginning?
So that started even before I was hired. And that was something which I was excited about when I heard about Lucca. I mean, you have a lot of companies who are trying to tackle the German market from in different industries, and some do the classic mistakes. And when you listen to this podcast, you hear a lot about that. Like they're just hiring simply people and trying and not really focusing on it. I think what amazed me in Lucca is that there was a lot of work done before they actually hired people and they hired a country manager. Meaning they actually looked at the customer base. They looked at how are they using the product. They did a lot of market research, talking to several people in the industry, but also talking to companies and talking to also people who are related to legal topics. So they understand truly where the potential is, what they need to do in terms of the product. So when I arrived, there was already a plan and a roadmap how they need to adapt the product so it's fit for the German market, especially in legal terms. So an example is we have those per diems in expenses. That's something you don't have in France, but you have that in Germany. So that's a detailed functionality, but it's very important because if you don't have that, you cannot serve the market. And there are many other examples which Lucca basically planned even before they started to hire. So this type of market research is, I think, very important, and also some kind of opportunity research and look at the competitors. What are they doing well, and where are probably weaknesses where you can attack them, or at least find some kind of ICP where you can actually enter the market in a meaningful way. So this was done before I actually came, and when I came, I already had kind of a red carpet, to be honest, to start basically looking for customers. That was one of the first missions I had, but also hiring talent, and also be the connection to the product teams and making sure that the product market fit is right for us and find the right ICP to be able to scale in that market.
So what was the segment then that you decided to focus on in the beginning?
So what we found out that there's a certain type of white collar companies between 50 and 500 users with specific needs. Most of them are consultants, IT, technology vendors who, for instance, have specific issues with remote work and home office, etc. This is a key ICP where we saw that we are actually more successful than our competition. So we focused on that segment and started to scale for that specific kind of customers.
So once you identify, how concretely do you then, let's say, transform all of this preparation? And I remember when we first talked to Lucca, I was also impressed by the amount of preparation that has been done, analyzing the market, and it's really for me one of the best practices that I have seen in many projects. So once you narrow down to this ICP, which is already much more focused, how do you then set up your, let's say, sales strategy or market attack strategy to really focus on those and get them into the pipeline?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things we did in addition to that. I think what is key and important is also the positioning, especially when you are in a competitive landscape. Because you can see that actually when you go to those HR tech events like Zukunft Personal or Talent Pro, where you have all those, I said, dozens of vendors who are doing the same thing. And they have all the similar buzzwords on their booth: engagement, AI, blah, blah, blah. So what we were looking for is where can we distinguish? For us, it was this erfrischend einfach, is a German term, refreshing, easy. You're smiling because one of the sources for this is actually you. You helped us in that case. And when you actually checked it, we spoke to use an agency to help us on that. And they spoke to customers, they spoke to prospects, and also to internal people to make sure that the Lucca identity we have in France, which is also colorful and it's a little bit different to what probably other companies are doing. How do we transform it in terms of how do we position ourselves? How do we talk about it in the German market? So how do we transfer this? And this came into our website, of course, but also into our call scripts, into our content, into everything which we do. One example is the form of address in Germany. And this was a big discussion internally. So in Germany, there's the Z, the formal form of address, and the Du, which is the more informal one. And we actually made a decision, even though, for instance, the Swiss colleagues were more leaning for the formal one, for the Z. We actually made a decision to focus more on Du. We do that in sales situations. We do that in most of our content. And it's risky because there are companies, especially higher companies, where people still would say, I'm not sure if I like that, but we made this decision because for our ICP and for their identity, for our positioning, actually, it's a good fit. So we say Du to our customers, and that's also very, very specific. And that's one of the things we do, even though we know that there might be people who don't like it. We actually made a decision to keep for it because it helps us to differentiate in the market.
So you said that you concentrated on this white collar 50 to 500 employees. So in the beginning, of course, you're a challenger in the market, right? So you're the newbie. No one knows you. You have big competition, a lot of players. So how do you then, or when did you see that basically from this path of understanding the market and then doing the first reach out, talking to the first customers, you started really to turn into a competitor, basically, from the newbie to the competitor, being able to win over accounts from your competition, even from the local competition. So what was a little bit the turning point that you have seen where you said, okay, now we're really starting to really get into the market?
I think there's a lot of details. So can be product specific. For us, it's also the way how we treat customers in terms of support, how we design our contracts opposed to other companies. But I think the key thing was actually me as the country manager. I was the first one winning the first customers, talking to those customers. I'm still engaged in sales situations and I love it because I think the most important thing is to actually engage with people and understand their needs and actually be in those situations to really understand what kind of issues can you solve, how can you differentiate. You also understand they are talking to other vendors and they're all selling and they are all good relationship builders and etc. But I think it's very important for the country manager to have a lot of real life experience and have a lot of real life conversations with people, because then if you find out how you can tackle it in terms of how can you solve those problems, then you can start replicating it into call scripts, sales enablement, into hiring. You understand a little bit better what kind of people you need to know, etc. And you can coach your sales team so they can independently go out there and basically do the same thing. But in order to prove that, you have to win a certain number of customers yourself, even though we're serving kind of a mid-market SMB. So in the beginning, there's not much value, right? So you have tickets around 10 to 30,000 euros per year in terms of ARR subscriptions. But still, if you win those type of customers and you know that you won against some type of competition, for instance, in our case, Personio, then you know, okay, if you have specific information, you can then replicate it. And then you can start to scale and teach basically people in the organization how to do it.
So you have to get your hands into the engine in the beginning yourself to build up the let's say system for Lucca in Germany. And so once you have done that, and it takes some time, right? So let's say the famous low-hanging fruits often just take some time to harvest. So you need to take the time. And I remember that Lucca was really in the first year looking for that, understanding the market, finding the first customers, finding the differentiators that really make the difference for the customers. So once you have understood, okay, this is how we think it works, how do you then build up the right team to be able to replicate and to scale, basically? So what were the first profiles you were looking for? How did you find them? We talked about the resilient profiles that you needed for a very high competitive market. You need people who really can do that also. So How did you approach that?
Yeah. So to be honest, it was actually challenging to find a pipeline of profiles. So that's the number one, or the initial issue, or the initial challenge. So we actually used agencies, and also me as a person, I would actually go to LinkedIn and source myself sometimes. So part of the team is actually sourced by myself, which is more successful just if you have a talent acquisition team somewhere in the world trying to hire people. So that's the first challenge. Then if you have profiles, I think there's no, I mean, it's a science for itself, and there's no like clear specific solution for this scenario. But what I, for instance, do is I hire always for hard and hard work. So that's 3H, especially in sales. Resilience mean on the one side, okay, you have to have a certain passion and you have to have a certain mindset, because what you get also as a country manager, it sounds so easy. You win the first customers, etc. But of course, you have setbacks and you have people telling you, no, I don't know who you are and I don't want to talk to you because I speak to those big guys here in Munich. So you have to have this heart and this resilience. But I believe also you have to find people who are willing to do the work, right? So you have to have specific questions in the interview, and you have to really dig deep dive to find a certain profile for that. And I think this passion and passion and mindset is sometimes, especially in those go-to-market situations, more important than the actual knowledge. I'm not looking for experienced senior account executives who work for Salesforce, Google, or similar companies who have a lot of knowledge and have experience selling SaaS. I'm looking for more talented people who probably come even up from HR than from sales, but have a certain mindset, have a certain personality, and have the entrepreneurial mindset also, and the intention. Hey, I like the fact that we are kind of a startup and we want to grow the whole thing in the next couple of years, and I want to be part of the story. That's more what I'm looking for in this hiring. And then if you have, so find the pipeline, hire the right people, and then I think the sales enablement piece is very important. And sales enablement, sometimes people think as of, okay, I hire someone who's translating the call scripts and the documents and the presentations from French to German, or from English to German, or whatever. Sales enablement for me is very specific. So we do, for instance, two things. One is we have every Wednesday morning, we meet at the office. So in the Wednesdays, it's always the office day. Everyone is here. So the office is completely full. And we do a breakfast, and it's an open forum. And every time one of the account executives is presenting one solution or a particular problem, or they are bringing a customer and they're saying, oh, they have this specific issue, and they are doing the demonstration as we would be the customer. And we talk about it. Like, have you thought about this? Did you know that? So, and this is very helpful. And we have in breakfast. So we literally eating croissants or pretzels along it. So it's not like a super formal meeting where people have to present, and also people have to have they need to be open. So there's security. We don't want to challenge them like, oh, you have to be better. It's more a conversation, and we are more helping each other. So that's one thing what we do. And the other one is we're organizing kind of an online meeting. We call it Deal Flash, and we're inviting the product people. And it's amazing because actually the product people love to join it, even the leaders. So even the head of product, the managing director for product, is regularly in that meeting, helping on particular deals. So we're presenting the deal and we're talking about a specific customer situation, and we're trying to find solutions. So how do we position ourselves? What would we do in those situations? What competitors doing, etc. And it's amazing because, of course, it helps us as the salespeople to prepare for the demonstration or for the pitch, but also it helps the product people to see some of the reality. So it's not just market research, it's not just Google or ChatGPT, it's actually concrete customers, concrete situations, and concrete issues. And you would be amazed. Sometimes the issues are completely different than we think, right? So we talk about AI, we talk about innovation, we talk about certain things. Sometimes the customer just simply has the issue that they need to put paper into a digital document and transfer it to the payroll, right? So it's sometimes completely different than what we think. It is.
So the sales enablement, so you say, okay, the first thing is the open discussion in the team and how can we help each other and how can everyone support the person who has a sales pitch going on. Then the second thing is the product team. So in the recent discussions we had, we highlighted several times the importance of the implication of the product team in the markets, because normally, especially in the early moments of the go-to-market, you don't have a dedicated product person for Germany only. So this is why it's so important to have the contact with the head office and with the product team there to continue to adapt the product to the German market. Are there any other, let's say, specific things that you do for sales enablement that are worth mentioning, or some best practice that you can share what you do additionally to that?
So we do have a sales enablement organization and someone actually dedicated to DACH, so Switzerland
Okay.
and Germany. And I think the onboarding is very important. So especially in the onboarding phase, we have a dedicated onboarding program, which I went through myself. So I'm trained to demonstrate and to talk about the product in detail. And so we have a dedicated program to onboard new salespeople in terms of product related things, but also in terms of qualification and sales methodology. And I think that's very important to have a structured, clear baseline of things we would like people to have before they actually start to speak to customers.
And so you said that one of the, let's say, differentiators of Lucca is the personal touch, the personal contact with the clients. One question that will lead us to that is, depending on the industry, we also talk about localization and how important it is to but to treat the German market in German, because it's so different between industries and ICPs. So how would you say, how important is it for you to really have German-speaking team, German-speaking content, a German-speaking website and everything? Do you think this is just good or nice to have, or is it really a necessity to be able to address your ICP in German?
Germans, not only German speaking, because there's sometimes a misunderstanding. You have people who speak also German, but that's a complete difference to people in Munich who grew up in Germany. I'm by the way not German myself. I was born in Czech Republic, but I live here since I'm 8 years old. So and I have a German citizenship. But it's not about the nationality. It's more about the cultural background. It's sometimes even language differences can make a difference, right? So if you're some kind of German speaking or have learned the language, it's a complete difference. If you have people on the ground who had the same education, the same culture, who are drinking the same beer, I don't know, is a completely different. So that's very important in sales situations. And you talk about translations. That's of course it just to translate stuff. It's not working. And even if you have really good translators, especially in an industry like ours in the HR tech, where you have a specific language for specific terms, the legal language, etc. It's very important to have local knowledge and local flavor to it. Plus the messaging. So as I said, Lucca has a certain identity and a certain way how they communicate. In France, we are using a lot of pictures and language which is a little bit funny, and it works in France, but you cannot translate it word by word to Germany. You have to find it can be similar, but it cannot be word by word the same. So that's something why it's really important to have local people. And we do have people dedicated to Germany and from the product, by the way. So we have a product marketing person who is the connection between the different product BUs, we call it business units, and the German team. So there's a dedicated, and I think this is a really important role to have the communication between the market and the local specificities and the user stories we create in the product management. So we actually have that just to add on that. And I think that's super important. And it's also super important to have those people ideally on the ground. So don't hire them in Barcelona or in Dublin, hire them in Munich, Frankfurt, or Berlin.
And so go to market in German, especially for your ICP and also in the HR sector. And this is also part of the, let's say, human touch, or really the necessity, because, many people say, okay, in Germany, can we not not do the go to market in English? Everyone speaks so great English in Germany, and so we can do that. And I think it's only always a first step that you can take in in the market, and maybe, land some first clients. But if you really want to roll out, then you need to localize to German. And one thing that interests me also is you said so 50 to 500 employees. So this is, let's say, small Mittelstand roundabout, right? So what is for you the specificity of this target group, and how do you address them? I mean, how do you really get in contact? Do you have to, I mean, are you calling? Are you doing, let's say, publicity? You're going to events? What are because everyone wants to crack that market segment of the Mittelstand, so what is your secret of going into that target group?
Yeah. So we're trying to create kind of top of the funnel content, for instance, around engagement. So up to now, engagement, for instance, employee engagement, employee retention is more a topic for probably bigger companies, but we actually try to tailor it for smaller companies and talk about it. Or the other one is legal things like the Salary Transparency Entgelttransparenz. It's a European act. It's based on the gender pay gap. And there's new rules and there's new stuff coming, which is also related to companies in our ICP. So every company from 50 users or 50 employees upwards have certain obligations. So we're using that to say, okay, this is coming for you, but let's talk about it. We give you some of the background, which is basically the legal background. But also, if you're interested, we can start a conversation how we can solve it. So we start with top of the funnel content, which is more generic. And then we try to work it down before we actually start to talk about our product and about our specific solution for those customers. So that's one of the tactics. I think marketing is one. The other one is, and that's still something we're testing, and I'm not 100% sure about how much Hunt is working. For us, it's actually not so bad. So we had quite good results on Hunt. Hunt means you have SDRs, cold calling, or using LinkedIn, Sales Navigator. We have tools like Salesloft. There's people who like it a lot, people who say, no, that's not working at all. I think it depends on the specific situations, on the specific business we are in. In our case, I believe that a certain part of the business needs to come out of Hunt and can come out of Hunt. We had some successes actually out of especially because I think there's a lot of companies who have certain issues, but they don't have the time to go to all those HR tech events, etc. They don't have the time to really research or think about what kind of tools can I use or what should I do. So to actually approach those companies and say, hey, I know you have this and this and this issue. You're still working with those files and you don't know how to do your expenses, your vacation still tracked on paper or whatever on Excel spreadsheets. I think there's a good opportunity that people would say, oh, you know what? It's true. Let's take 30 minutes to speak about it. So I believe Hunt is also relevant. Of course, it depends on the type of business. So depending if you are in an enterprise or in an SMB business, if you have specific ICPs, or if you have a general idea what the competition is. I mean, every our competitors is doing Hunt. So I think that's something you need to take a look in your specific type of business. But I believe for us, it's actually something we do as well. Not as a main strategy, but also a part of the strategy.
Okay. And events also is important for you?
Exactly, yeah. That's the third part. We're using a lot of those HR tech events. Of course, the competition is high, but it actually 40% of our opportunities came from events because in Germany, and that's probably different to at least what I've heard to French events. In Germany, people are coming to those events actually to buy software. So you have concrete opportunities where people are really asking for a solution.
Yeah. So if you now looking back, so how many people are you now in the market?
11.
Okay, so that's quite already a big team, I would say. And this is in over 1 year, 1.5 years, I think, roughly. Yeah. Okay, so 11 people, so that's great. So you're all based in Munich, in the beautiful city of Munich. So now looking back of the time that you have been at Lucca for Germany, what are the top 3 lessons that you would share with any international company that tries to come into this highly competitive markets? What are the top 3 things that you say, okay, this is must do or must not do?
Yeah, good question. I think the hiring part is very important to focus on the pipeline. It's not that easy if you don't have an employer brand, so nobody knows you. If you don't have, it's typically you don't have any benefits or anything mature, you barely have probably an entity. You're barely present. That's not easy. So you have to focus on that. You have to have a good story and you have to focus it as a country manager as well. The second is what I said. I think what is super important to balance between strategic work, do the market research, understand the market, understand the specifics, understand the vision, and at the same time be, as you said, in the engine room and talk to specific customers about very detailed things so you understand where they are at and really understand how you can design your target group basically. So I think that's very important, especially in the beginning. And then you said 11 people in 18 months. Most of them came in the last 12 months, almost all. So I was here for a couple of months just by myself, just to learn and do that things. And the third thing is a really good communication strategy internally. I think that's the most difficult part. And I'm talking a little bit out of the perspective of a German country manager, right? But I think your audience, there are a lot of people probably in the same situation. You have to find the right level, how you communicate with the certain levels in your company, how you communicate with the CEO, how you communicate with certain product people. You have to understand that there's cultural differences. You have to understand there's language barriers. So sometimes, even though you think that people hear you and you said something and everyone nods, you have to make sure that people really understand. But also same thing backwards. Like if you hear something or you read something, you have to spend more energy on understanding each other. So what I do also, I'm spending every month at least a week in Paris, because I think the personal connection, and even if it's a beer or a coffee, is super important, because this inter-company or cross-company collaboration is super important. That's one of the most critical points, especially when you have a small team of 11 and then you have 700 people in Paris who are partly work for the German company. But if that doesn't work, it's going to fail. So those are probably the top three things I would suggest to people who want to be successful in Germany.
Yeah, and I would say the last part, what you said, I think this is so important. I mean, often, I must say, many projects that I see, there is not enough connection between the teams. And I think getting to know the people, not only like for, in the beginning of when you join the company, like to have 2-3 days of onboarding and then you go back and then there is no connection anymore. I think this is so important, especially for you going there, because you can just solve problems so much quicker than over the phone or by email or in video conference. And I think this connection is really important, because you're part of the same team run. So it's good that you do that very intensively. And it's also important that people from the head office, go regularly in the markets to also see by themselves what the questions are, what the roadblocks are basically in the new market. So is there anything now looking back that you would say you would do differently if you had to start all over again?
I would focus more on the hiring thing. So I also did some mistakes there. So I'm experienced in hiring, but I think that I underestimated a little bit this part. Find good candidates, to find the right pipeline, etc. Yeah, that's probably the biggest one I
Yeah, I
have.
mean, it's the most important one. I mean, hiring is so important, because, if you don't hire like the right person, of course, it takes a lot of time to replace, to understand, to realize, to replace, to find someone else. And what we've also seen in the past is, and you said, to have that good hiring process is also so important, because I remember we lost, not with Lucca, but it happened that, I spoke to people who lost candidates because the process was not prepared, contract wasn't ready, benefits weren't ready, understanding wasn't ready. And so it's so important also to have that process good in place to create the trust also with the candidate and between the
Yeah,
candidate and the company.
yeah. We have a specific process. So we have a standard process. In the end, we have a thing called Grand Oral. And in this Grand Oral, you expose the candidate to a number of people out of the whole organization. So it could be people in Paris, Nantes, in Barcelona, wherever, who are doing different things. So not just managers or individual contributors. It could be everyone in the company is able to get to those Grand Orals. In English, we call it the final talk, but in French, it's the Grand Oral. And there's 3 ritual questions which seem very odd. And the first thing is the other processes, when is your start date? And the third one is, what are you worth? So you actually sit in front of 10 people, 50 people. When I, as a country manager, I applied, there was 25 people or something, because everyone wanted to see who would be the German guy we hire. And I was asked, so what's going to be your salary? And the background of this, and this is very important, in Lucca, we have a full transparency on salary. So if you enter Lucca, you see the salary of every single individual up to the CEO, and full. It's very clear. And that's very unusual, especially in Germany. And when I talk about it, sometimes I get questions like, oh, seriously? Did you have any bad experiences? No. And this is because you asked me also, what did you specifically learn? In the beginning, I was almost trying to hide it, or I was, shit, they need to go through this thing and they need to ask for their salary, basically, etc. I personally didn't have the issue with that. It was unusual for me, but I said, okay, this is it. But I thought that probably people would have more issues with that. And I learned that no, turn it into a strength. So we are super transparent, and it's had a lot of positives. We can do an own podcast about that one. But actually, you can say, hey, we are unique. We are not like any other company. We are doing this. So I agree. The interview process is super important. And sometimes something which you perceive a little bit like different or odd or whatever can be a strength. So use that as something powerful, right? So yeah.
And so now looking a little bit ahead, what's next for Lucca in Germany? Because you have big goals and you are very ambitious for the German market. So what's coming up in the next 12, 24 months for Lucca?
Yeah. I don't want to say too much, because who knows if some of our friends in the market will see us. No, I think we're doubling our bookings every quarter now. So we have good momentum, and we made the decision to hire another at least 10 people in the next 12 months. Actually, we're going to hire now. So we are now in the hiring process. Probably that's also a reason why I'm talking about hiring, because that's going to be one of my key tasks in the next couple of weeks and months. So we're going to scale, and also we're going to increase the business. The next 12 months will be to keep that momentum. I think we have a good way we know how to sell, what our CP is, where we are strong, where we probably also know deals where we just get the hands off. When we know that it's not our customer, we just don't deal with it. We focus on those who we think we can win. So this is going to happen. And then we want to see if we can scale it further. It depends, of course, on the competition, etc. So yeah, that's basically no rocket science. But for Lucca and that's an interesting case, because, and you know the company personally, right? So it's a really French company, and the change from being a French company. So when I entered, everything was in French. The Slack groups were in French. All the documentation, the hiring everything was in French. That's changing very rapidly, and to transform it. So we are only a blueprint, even though we are one of the, not one of them. We are now the key focus. We are the country which is supposed to grow the fastest in the next couple of years. The most interesting part will be to transform the French company into a real international company. And that's going to be interesting. And that's not only my task, but that's something which the whole organization is doing.
Yeah. So that's a nice outlook, and it's a challenge, like for everyone, of course, to become an international company. But I'm very confident about Lucca. And if you look at 700 people working on the French market, you can just imagine how many people you will need for the German market too. I mean, taking away all of the core teams and everything that will stay in the headquarter, but I think there's a lot of potential for you. So thank you very much, Marek, for sharing all of this with us and to giving some insights on the behind the scenes of the Lucca go-to-market in Germany. And congratulations also on the first results, and it's really going into the right direction. So looking forward to I don't know, getting a heads up maybe in a year or two to see where we're at. But I think it's going well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.
What I really love about Lucca's story is how intentional every step of their journey has been, from choosing their ICP to defining how they speak to customers. Competing in a market like Germany isn't just about the product. It's about focus, it's about clarity, and the human touch. Marek's experience shows that even in a highly competitive environment, you can win by staying close to your customers, empowering your team, and being precise about where and where not to compete. So if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow Go to Germany Stories on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please be nice and leave a 5-star rating. It really helps more people to discover those stories and how European founders and their teams succeed in Germany. See you next time. Bye bye.